Hey guys, welcome back to The Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys tuning in for today's episode. Guys, today I want to talk about the factors that make bass not want to bite. Makes them inactive, makes them where they're tough to catch. This is a pretty complex topic because a lot of people have some of the common, theories on this. Like, after a cold front run comes through, bass can get tough, all that type of stuff. There are some truths to some of the common most well-known reasons bass don't bite, but there's also a lot of underlying reasons that most people don't even pay attention to. So I sort of want to dig into that a little bit more, and I want to give you guys some tips and advice on how to counter that if you run into these conditions, some things you can do to catch some fish when overall everybody's struggling. So we'll get into that. Right now, guys, I'm on the way up to St. Louis. I've got my boat back there. I'm going to get the boat wrapped with the Bridgeford wrap, so heading up there, trying to get caught up on videos. I had an on-the-water lesson yesterday, didn't get a chance to put them out, so I'm going to try to get that going here. And also, guys, thank you very much, man. One of the things I wanted to talk about before we get into this video, thank you very much for every single person that has been using and bookmarking that Tackle Warehouse link that I have in every video description. I know you guys get tired of hearing me talk about it, but I cannot tell you how important that is to keep this channel on YouTube and how much me and my family appreciate that. All you guys that have bookmarked that link, and anytime you have to order something, you just use that link. Much appreciated. And real quick, guys, reminder, I got my Solar Bat sunglasses on right here. We've only got 3 more days left in the big Founders Day sale. If you get a pair of these things by this weekend, by the end of August, 30% off on them, and you get a free pair, a $100 pair of sunglasses, absolutely free with the purchase of my glasses here. Just use the promo code RandyB for free shipping and handling. So that Solar Bat link will be in the description of the video. And if you just want to get one pair, guys, get the high contrast yellow lenses. That's my favorite. That's what I got on right here. You can see them really, really good in low light conditions. So appreciate that. Okay, what is the factors that make bass tough to catch? Now, let me talk with the obvious right off the bat. You can't deny the cold front situation. And there's a lot of people, when you talk about a cold front coming through, a lot of people don't really know, and I don't really know exactly why a cold front coming through sort of turns the bass off. But it probably has something to do with the food chain. It affects the food chain in some way. Nobody really fully understands that. But one of the things about a cold front is not all cold fronts are created the same, because when you talk about the impact that a cold front has on bass, there's 2 primary times a year that a cold front really turns bass off. Number one is in the springtime of the year when the water is in the 50s or the 60s, and then again in the fall time of the year when the water's in the 50s and the 60s. If you have a bad cold front come through, especially if you have an associated north wind with it, in those times of the years when those water temperatures are in that range, it has the greatest impact on turning fish off. But if you got a cold front that comes through like during the summertime of the year or during the winter time, it really doesn't do much to the fish. The fish do not react hardly any to a cold front passage. You can catch them pretty much doing the same thing, before and after the cold front. So that's one thing. We'll talk about how to catch them in this, towards the end of the video, but I want to identify the things that turn them on. The next thing that turns fish off is some type of a massive fluctuation in either the water temperature, the water clarity, or the water level. Sometimes it can be just one of those things. Sometimes it can be a combination. Sometimes it can be all of them. But if you have a rapidly falling or a rapidly rising lake, specifically a rapidly rising lake, a lot of times that makes fish very difficult to catch. And let's talk a little bit about the rising lake here. If you have a lake that say you get some heavy rains for 2 or 3 days, the ground's saturated, the lake comes up in a hurry, there's 2 things that happen with that. Number one, a lot of times the fish just get dormant. It's not a prime feeding window. They don't want to expel energy, so they just quit biting. A lot of times they don't move with the water. Sometimes they stay where they're at, even if the water gets higher, but it can get difficult to catch them on rising waters. Same with water clarity changes. If you have the same type of deal where the water comes up and you have a lot of water coming into the lake and it gets the water muddy, That muddy water can turn the fish off sometimes, especially if the water's cooler. Sometimes it can help if it's warmer. If you got dirty water coming in when the water's warm, it can actually help the bite some. But if you have dirty water coming in when the water's cold, that can turn the fish off. And then, all the different type of fluctuations, the variables and the combinations of those environmental factors like that can have a big impact, along with the water temperature changes. Especially when the fish are shallow, like in the spring or the fall time of the year. If you have a bad cold front that comes through that drops the water temperature significantly, that can really turn them off. A lot of times, you can have these radical Arctic fronts that come through where you'll have a 30 to 40 degree temperature drop like in one day, and that can really have an impact on the fish. And then the third one, which has a huge impact on it, in fact, probably, I'm guessing, I'd probably put it near the top of the list, overall, just day in and day out, is heavy fishing and heavy recreational boating traffic on a lake. If you have lots of noise in the lake, noise decibel levels that are high, it doesn't matter if it's a bass boat, if it's 1,000 bass boats on the lake in a weekend, or if there's jet skis and pontoons and those big wave making things out there all the time. Bass have conditioned and they've evolved to turn off when these noise decibel levels get higher as a survival mechanism. They know that, there's danger involved with it. So they get inactive and they turn off. And it can be with an outboard motor noise. It can be with a lot of trolling motor noises. It can be with electronic pings, any type of noise that enters the water. And the smaller the lake is, the bigger the impact that noise has on the lake. So those are your three main factors. It's the cold fronts, it's the changes in the water clarity, water temperature, and water level in a drastic way, and it's the fishing pressure. Okay, so what can you do during these tough situations? How can you combat it and use it to your advantage? The first thing you have to remember when this happens, when any of these things happen, a lot of times it takes the fish out of an active feeding mode. And the active feeding mode tells you that you cannot fish horizontal moving baits that move through the water and you're after a reaction strike. So therefore, when you have a tough fishing condition like that, I'm not saying all the time, but I'm saying the majority of the time, you need to put away your moving baits like your crankbaits, your spinner baits, your top waters, your chatter baits, your swim baits, your glide baits, any bait that the fish has to chase. If the fish actually has to expel energy and get away from their cover and their ambush point, if you have those situations, a lot of times they won't do it. So my advice when you have tough fishing conditions like that is go to your bottom bouncing lures. Your pitching and flipping jigs, football head jigs, wobble head jigs, Texas rig worms, wacky rigs, shaky heads, Ned rigs, drop shots, anything that you can crawl along the bottom. You're a lot apt more to catch a fish if the fish does not have to move very far to expel energy with that. And this is especially true, if you have like heavy fishing pressure and a lot of noise. Heavy fishing pressure and noise will definitely put those fish down in a situation where they don't want to move out of there. I mean, they want to stay in those particular areas and not move. So anyway, guys, that's just a few things about it. I mean, fishing and fish are complex. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of stuff that there's no absolutes to it. I'm talking about some stuff here from my own personal experience. There are always exceptions to the rules. I have caught, for example, when I talk about you don't want to fish a moving bait under those conditions, I've whacked them sometimes on a crankbait in dirty water when that water came up. Sometimes I've whacked them after about cold front on a rattle trap. But when you talk about, if you had a chart, for example, and I could chart out the last 40 years that I bass fished, the advice that I just gave you there would hold true more times than not. So, guys, that's just another little tidbit to add to your bass fishing knowledge. Hope it helps out. We'll talk later.